Welcome back, and it's time for debate number 2. Chandrayaan 2, which is currently orbiting the moon, is inching closer towards the moon and will perform its third lunar bound orbit maneuver early tomorrow. Chandrayaan has captured some more images of the lunar surface showing several craters. The Indian Space Research Organization has now released photos which were captured by the lunar spacecraft. Prominent craters like Sommerfeld, Kirkwood, Jackson and others are visible in the picture. These craters have been named after great scientists, astronomers and physicists. The space agency said that these pictures of the lunar surface were taken on the 23rd of August by terrain mapping camera 2 of the Chandrayaan from an altitude of about 4,375 kilometers. The first picture of the moon captured by Chandrayaan was released by ISRO on the 22nd of August. And in fact, we'll talk about this very important mission for India, which is going to put our country on a map of elitist space agencies who have gone to the moon, and we will have guests to talk about it. But Gulrez Sheikh of the BJP is still with me from my previous debate. Gulrez, a proud moment for India, and in fact, the last few phases of the Chandrayaan 2, it will be landing on the 7th of September, and that is when the crucial test will commence. But everybody will be watching with hands and fingers crossed.
We are all praying for that day and we are eagerly waiting for it. And remember one thing, that there is a space race going on in Asia as well between India and China. And our government is really serious in winning the race, be it in the terms of satellite missile or be it Mangalyaan or Chandrayaan 2. So we want to take a leap forward, and whosoever will dominate the space will dominate the land as well. And I'm sure, and we are optimistic, that we may even find on the dark south pole of moon the helium-3, and which can make us the leader in terms of power supply, energy supply to the entire globe. And whichever country will bring it on the earth from there will definitely be commanding the energy requirements of the earth, and we don't want to be just a part of it. We want to lead it, and we are going and marching in that direction.
Absolutely. I also have with me on the show Dr. V.N. Jha, who is the former Joint Director of DRDO and a retired scientist from aerospace. Mr. Jha, thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, a very proud moment for India. But let's also talk about some of the things which have transpired in the past related to similar events. Out of the 38 soft landings which have been attempted, the success rate has been about 52% so far. Do you think that is definitely going to be playing on the ISRO scientists? Because this is something which is going to be watched and viewed by the entire world, and it is going to be a very proud moment for India. We are landing, on a side of the moon which has not been attempted very often, and we have done so in the minimal budget as well. So a lot of things, have to be on track, and a lot of precaution. In other words, you have to be circumspect in the last few minutes, last few hours of the landing.
Absolutely. When Professor Shivan was saying that only half the problems are over, more of the problems are yet to start, and he is absolutely right. Look, Chandrayaan is such a far distance from us now, and we are trying to control from here. And this control is something what earlier never we have achieved, because there is a lander Vikram which will have to get detached from the orbiter, and then only its ignition system can be tested. So you see now we have got 1 month plus wherein Chandrayaan is off from the earth, off from our grip, and now on I think it will be on 2nd or 3rd. So that is the day when the separation will start, and the lander Vikram will be out, and the maneuvering is something which is very, very critical, and that is where everything is going to depend. So all fingers crossed. Of course, scientists have taken all measures in planning all this. Remember, right now Chandrayaan is moving at a speed of about 2 kilometers or so per second. it is 1.7 to 2 kilometers per second. Finally, it has to come down to 1.7 kilometer per second. It is per second. And from that 1.7 kilometer per second, Vikram will have to decelerate to zero speed, zero forward speed, and then it will come down to the lunar surface. So there are a lot of ifs and buts, lot of technologies involved, lot of intricacies are involved, and it is also, the fraction of the seconds all these things happening. I don't know whether you have heard Professor Sivan that on, I think it is on 2nd September, that he will be switching on the, separating the orbiter, and on 3rd September, he will switch on the ignition of the lander for 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And then he will know how good is the performance of the lander, Vikram. So that is the type of intricacy that we are talking of. Of course, the picture that you are showing has been taken by the orbiter. It is fabulous. These pictures are something what will be building onto our library. We will have lot many things to study. So now from the date of 22nd July, now we are past we are on 27th August now. Tomorrow is one more maneuver where the Chandrayaan will be brought from the further orbit of 4,000 kilometer plus to less than that. And finally, on 2nd or so, on 1st, it will be 100 kilometer circular lunar or polar orbit.
Mr. Jha, in fact, Mr. Jha, I also want you to explain to our viewers, some of the challenges which Chandrayaan is going to be facing. And as far as my space knowledge is concerned, from whatever I have garnered and read, orbit inclination is something which is going to be a key area which has to be focused on.
Yes. On the moon, the inclination is absolutely intricate maneuver. Earlier many of the orbiters have crashed. The moon gravity is not uniform. Moon gravity has got concentrates in the area they have got mass com. There is a huge concentration of mass due to the impact of of various objects into the lunar surface. So that mass com creates massive gravitational influctuations, what we know as a perturbations. So with that going on, the orbit is very intricate, and that is where Professor Sivan had mentioned to us on 20th that he was lucky to get the Chandrayaan into the lunar orbit already at 88 degree inclination. The polar orbit is 90 degree. So it is only 2 degree that he will have to maneuver. But in a longer run, when the orbiter has to revolve around the moon for next 1 year, he possibly will choose 86 degree of inclination, because that 86 degree is something known as frozen orbit, in which there is no influence of these perturbations of the mass coms of the moon. So a lot of things are there, a lot of ifs and buts are there, but ISRO has planned very delicately. Everything has been planned so meticulously that we should hope, we should trust on our scientists that yes, it will materialize.
Absolutely. And Gulrez, other countries have also tried to land their respective aircrafts, in the same vicinity, but have failed. In fact, Israel is another country, one of our, one of our friends and our key allies. They tried something similar in April, but it crashed. So in fact, the Chandrayaan 2 is also going to be stuttering into unknown territory very soon. But the question I want to ask you is that when something like this, which is of national pride, which in fact makes you proud to be an Indian, the thing to note is that it is bereft of politics, it is bereft of opinion, it is bereft of any partiality, and it is without any color or creed. How important is this mission for India and the current dispensation?
See, it is very important, and we are optimistic that it will land safely and will also send its research from there, because after Mangalyaan, definitely our model sub have boosted up. And as far as the government is concerned, government is definitely marching ahead, and we want India to be a space power, because future battles will not be fought on the earth. They will be fought in the space. And one can see what happened yesterday. The NASA started blaming India that due to your anti-satellite missiles, there are debris in the space. You have polluted the space. But these people have done it so many times previously. Why this is the case? It is not because of scientific exploration, because India is getting might. India is becoming muscular even in space on the earth as well. So that is the reason, and we want India to progress in the space in every field, and government will definitely assure whatever funds are required, our scientists will get whatever the stuff they need, they will be getting it, and government will be, if they want, with their demands, we will fulfill it. Each and every demand will be fulfilled, because we want India's might to grow.
Absolutely. And Mr. Jha, I would also want to talk about the orbit inclination a little more, but I also want your reaction on what NASA has said about the anti-satellite debris which is floating about in space. Now, the basic premise is that when it enters the Earth's gravity, it will decay and it will disappear. But NASA has no business telling us or pointing out that there is debris as a result of our experiments, because they themselves have, launched about 5,000 satellites, and there more than 20,000 debris pieces, that they in fact have to answer for.
Well, you should take it in another way. Now, I will be talking purely as a scientist, not as a defense person or anyone keeping something for our interest. See, the moment ASAT has been, it has been effective, mission was launched, there were debris. There were 400 plus debris. And those 400 plus debris, since it was a head-on impact, head-on explosion, so immediately those debris, most of them, they decelerated. And it's a simple physics that anything in the orbit, orbital velocity at about 300 kilometers is 7.6 kilometers per second. The moment they have been impact, most of those debris have achieved velocity much lower than 7.6. So as a result, it has been attracted by the Earth's gravity, and it has entered the atmosphere and burnt. There will be some pieces which will, fly off outward. When there's an explosion, the components fly all over. So something which has gone towards upper altitude, that would be possibly that is what NASA right now is talking of. About 49 were left by July or so, and that too surely will get decelerated slowly and slowly, because of there are some the molecules of air in that area also. So naturally everything, there's a decay, we call it orbital decay. So that decay happens and everything gets slower. The moment it gets slower, it falls down the orbital velocity requirement, and again it comes to the Earth's atmosphere and gets burned. So that is not an issue. Second thing you asked me about the Chandrayaan's inclination. That's a very important thing.
Right. Because in fact, let me amplify my question to you. From what I have gathered, that if it finds an angle which is greater than 12 degrees, it could topple over.
Yeah, that is not the inclination what Professor Sivan had talked. That is when the lander, Vikram, comes for landing. It has got legs, and those legs, when it comes to the lunar surface, if that surface is uneven, then if that unevenness is more than 12 degree, with that 12 degree, there will be a slant of the impact, and at that impact slant, it may topple over. If you remember, the first the touchdown by NASA, Apollo 11, when it had landed, the area that it had chosen looked absolutely flat, but when they came very close to it, they found it is not flat. So similarly, ISRO also has identified, right now they have identified two places in that South Pole area, place A, place B. So it will be trying for both place A. In case if that is after coming to about 30 meters, 100 meters or 30 meters, it finds that no, it is not uneven, it will go to the place B. at this place B, if it is flat, fine, it will come for landing. If it is not flat there as well, then again it will have the maneuvering. Remember, Vikram is carrying hell of a lot of the fuel. It has got fuel with it, so it will be able to maneuver. It's a very small area that it needs that flat. So that is what 12 degree Professor Sivan was talking about. That is not the inclination of the orbit. That is the angle with which the lunar the Vikram will be landing on its legs. That is what he was talking of.
Absolutely. And Gulrez, you wanted to come in. In fact, a lot of technicalities also being discussed, apart from the fact that Chandrayaan 2 is getting closer to the moon, and a lot of intricacies and complexities have already been taken care of, but the world is going to be watching. The Prime Minister is also going to be there on the 7th of September, in fact, watching this monumental moment in Indian space history, and not only in space history, but Indian history in a general.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody is waiting, including the whole of the world is waiting for that moment. But I will also want to congratulate you for doing such programs, because these programs show the might of the country and also show the psychology of the country. You look at the programs of the neighboring country, which is a hosted country to us. Whole time what is going on? That is India-Pakistan war and all those things. So this is the signs and symptoms of a normal country, and we are a normal country, a progressive country, and I want to salute the channels like you and people like you who are showing this to the world.
Thank you, Gulrez. Appreciate your kind and benign words on us taking this initiative and talking about Chandrayaan 2. And Mr. Jha, let's also talk about, the first moon landing. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, that changed the world in a lot of ways. In fact, that went on to percolate to the world that a lot was possible. Of course, it's been a lot of years, but it's been more than 50 years since that happened. But what, in fact, Neil Armstrong did for the world, Chandrayaan 2 is going to do for India. Do you concur, sir?
Yes, in a broader sense, yes. But in actual sense, no. When the human goes for landing, it's entirely a different configuration. When Apollo 11 was sent, it has gone direct from the Earth without any of those sling operations. So it has all those means, fuel and power, with which it has gone straight from out from the Earth's orbit and gone to the lunar orbit. There made a figure of 8 and then came for landing. Remember, when they also had gone for landing, one person remained in their orbiting module, that was Apollo 11, and the lander in which they descended onto the Earth's lunar surface. That is a very, very delicate issue. That is what I was trying to tell you earlier, that when they went for their chosen landing site, they found it is not even how it looked from their orbit. So they had to have a plan A, plan B, plan C. All those things had to happen. And again, remember, when we were discussing on your channel, when the Chandrayaan 2 was being sent from here, that whether it is possible to send our women force or our astronauts to the moon, there is a far long time, because when the lander goes there, for the lunar module goes there to the surface, for it to come back, you need hell of a lot of fuel, you need hell of a lot of resources, and the technology in which it has to come to the orbit of 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers, whatever is there, and again interface with those orbiting module, and then come back here. A lot of things are there. Right now, our people don't know. So it is a lot of intricacy that has to be taken care of there. But yes, very fact that we are going to the surface of the moon, and that too at a surface where no one earlier has landed, the South Pole. So everyone will be looking with a lot of keenness into their eye, whether it is American, Chinese or Russians. All of them will be looking with very keen eyes, because that is one area where your soft power, the digital, that is the software what you have put into the orbiter and the lander, how it is going to interact with each other with every microsecond, and then going to maneuver onto the surface of the moon. That is what is going to matter a lot. And again, remember the weight that lander Vikram has. It has to be very, very soft landing. Otherwise, it will topple over. So that is how it is going to be a very intricate operation. But I'm sure ISRO scientists, they have spent a lot of time onto this soft landing, and they have taken care of every part of deviations and the possibilities that may arise at that time. They have taken care of it.
Absolutely.
So that is how it is going to be different.
And we're also joined by Colonel Dinesh Nain, who's a satellite and missile systems expert. Mr. Nain, thank you so much for being on the show. We're talking about the Chandrayaan 2 and the fact that a crucial time is going to begin for the spacecraft as it is going to near the moon's surface. You know, lunar dust is another area which the aircraft has to in fact come back for, take into account for. But we are talking more of the effect, or rather the larger areas in which the moon landing by ISRO is going to affect not only the citizens of India but the world entire. How do you react to this attempt or this feat by the Indian Space Agency?
Vineet, I think ISRO has taken a lot of a leap in many things in comparison to so many other space agencies, whether it is NASA or it is Roscos or it is China or Japan or even the private companies like SpaceX, and they are coming up now. See, the first phase, which was a bit difficult for us, was after the spacecraft left the Earth orbit and it started traveling towards the moon, its journey of 3,84,000 kilometers. This was the time when the moon transfer trajectory, we have to insert, when we reached near the moon, we had to insert this spacecraft into the moon's gravity. That was the most crucial time. But since we had already done it on Chandrayaan 1, so the scientists, we were very confident about our scientists, and similarly the engines were fired. The spacecraft was turned 180 degrees, so that when retro thrust was engines fired with thrust, the speed is slowed down to a level that it can start rotating on the orbit of the lunar orbit, moon orbit. It should not be very fast so that it goes into the space, or it should not be very slow that it falls down on the moon's surface. After achieving this was probably at a distance of about 4,000 kilometers, and now the thrust in this lunar orbit phase, which is started on 22nd, the thrust is being given to the spacecraft to slow it down and slowly bring it in the lower orbits of the moon. And slowly it has to come down to 100 kilometers orbit by September 1st. That's the time again this aircraft will be turned 180 degrees again back. And let me tell you, Vineet, that will be the time when first time the retro engines of the lander, not the spacecraft, but the lander Vikram is going to fire the engines, to fire and separate it out, slow it down further and come down more close to the moon. And by doing so, by 6th of September, it has to come down to one side up to 30 kilometers and the other side about 100 kilometers. This is going to be the complete scenario that time. And all this while, even the orbiter as well as the lander, both are going to have exclusive photography of the moon surface to find out the exact place on the South Pole where they have to land. Now, once we decide on 6th and 7th, as earlier being told, then at this time, lander will be rotated 90 degrees. And it should be so perfect that when we start reducing the height from 30 kilometers down on, and those 15 minutes are going to be very, very crucial, because the speed has to come down from 4,000 kilometers per hour to minimal speed by using the thrust engines. And then the soft landing has to take place.
Colonel Nain, in fact, just to append to whatever you're also saying, the success rate wait for space missions when it comes to this crucial point of landing. You know, the soft landing percentage so far, we also saw what happened in April when Israel also tried to pull off something similar. The success rate has only been 37% when it comes to soft landings. You know, it's going to be a very crucial hour for the ISRO team, you know, to get this maneuver, which you have very intricately described, you know, to not let go of any kind of corners when they actually monitor this particular move.
Vineet, when our scientists are about to create or to manufacture semi-cryogenic engines with help of Russia, when our scientists have created some missions in just 47 to 67 billion million of dollars, and now this
right, Colonel Land, in fact, apologies, we'll have to wrap up the show right now. It's time for a short break on this particular debate. We will be back momentarily. Stay tuned.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.